Good evening, all. Studio, we're ready. Ms. Mulberg, I am going to take attendance so that we can go ahead and get this meeting underway. Mr. Frisch?
Good evening.
Good evening. Ms. Corbett-Sanders?
Good evening. I'm interested in hearing everybody tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Omeish?
Hello.
Hello. Ms. Keys-Gamarra?
Good evening.
Good evening. Ms. Sizemore-Heiser?
Good evening, everybody. Good evening.
Good evening. Ms. Pekarsky? Ms. Pekarsky, I don't have a voice for you yet. Well, I see that she's there, so hopefully we don't have any microphone issues. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the public hearing for the proposed boundary adjustment for elementary schools in the Justice High School Pyramid. On behalf of the entire school board, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to share your thoughts with us this evening. This hearing is being broadcast on channel 99 and live streamed at fcps.edu/tv/ch99. Tonight we have 16 speakers registered to address the board. Each speaker is allotted 3 minutes, and we ask that you stay within that time limit. The timer will start when you begin to speak, and the timer will sound at the conclusion of your 3 minutes. Speakers should refrain from addressing topics other than the proposed boundary adjustment. When your name is called, please unmute your microphone and begin speaking. At the end of your 3 minutes, we ask that you sign off and continue watching the public hearing on channel 99. I will now call on our clerk to call the first speakers to share their comments.
Speaker number 1, Jenna Trong.
Good evening. My name is Jenna Trong, or Miss Trong to my students at Sleepy Hollow Elementary. I am wrapping up my 5th year of teaching and my 3rd year here. I cannot think of a better place to teach at because the students love to learn and they get an opportunity to be part of a diverse community of learners. I am also a Fairfax County Public Schools alumni, graduating from Annandale High School. With that being said, I am speaking tonight because I do not want the neighborhoods that have attended Sleepy Hollow for many years to be moved because they will miss out on unique opportunities at our school and the timing and impact of the boundary adjustments after the COVID-19 pandemic. The unique opportunities at Sleepy Hollow. I came to Sleepy Hollow as an educator because I wanted to teach at a diverse school of students that reminded me of my time at Annandale. By moving students, they will miss out on a huge opportunity to immerse themselves in a school where diversity is a strength in order to become global citizens. Opportunities include STEAM class, being part of the SCA, participating in the 50 States Challenge, memorable school events such as Bingoween, the Back to School Picnic, International Night, and the annual silent auction. Finally, students will miss out on being part of classroom communities where teachers know students by name, need, and interests. I can attest to this because I keep in touch with my former students even after they have left my classroom and moved on to another grade. My other point is the timing and impact of the boundary adjustment. As we move into some normalcy in the world, the timing is unjust and unfair to the students and families that have invested in Sleepy Hollow Elementary for many years. I have students that were virtual all year long, and they may not be in our school building in late August, a place where they have relationships with others online and offline. By moving them to another school, it will break up the stability and friendships that were years in the making. Consequently, they will need to form relationships starting from scratch at a new school. Sleepy Hollow would not be getting any students from other schools with the proposed boundary adjustments. With that being said, why are students being moved from Sleepy Hollow, where they can walk every day, to a school where they would need to take a bus getting there? Why is there a rush to move students to another school after a pandemic rather than giving them a stable year at Sleepy Hollow Elementary and be around familiar faces? Looking at the projected enrollment, we would end up being under-enrolled with the boundary adjustments. I know that some of my students that would be impacted by this change would be very upset to leave Sleepy Hollow, especially if they were looking forward to being in the building in the fall. All in all, the boundary adjustments to Sleepy Hollow Elementary School should not go through, especially after a global pandemic year with never-ending changes.
Thank you. Speaker number 2, Greg Deephouse.
Good evening. My name is Greg Deephouse, and I'm addressing the board on behalf of the Sleepy Hollow Elementary PTA as the Board of Directors' outgoing president. I urge the school board to only make changes to school boundaries that are absolutely necessary to increasing educational outcomes. School overcrowding and funding equity in the justice pyramid is a serious issue. However, the current recommendation for boundary adjustment to Sleepy Hollow makes little sense, and I implore the board to reject this recommendation on 3 grounds. First, the boundary adjustment affecting Sleepy Hollow does not address the seminal issue of Glen Forest overcrowding. Rather than addressing this serious issue, the recommendation lists Beech Tree attendance islands as the reason for moving 81 students from Sleepy Hollow to Beech Tree Elementary. Let's be clear, FCPS must have a higher bar for making boundary adjustments than how a boundary appears on a map. The current boundaries may look strange due to SPS's decision to close the Wilston Elementary School in the 1970s and divide its student population, which is 2 miles from the school and north of Route 50, between Beech Tree and Sleepy Hollow. The board should also note that Sleepy Hollow has its own attendance islands, which are the Wilston and Federal Hills communities north of Route 50 and the Seven Corners Shopping Center. Second, the FCPS recommended boundary change would require families and students to travel further to school. The recommended boundary adjustment would move the Bel Air and Sleepy Hollow communities to Beech Tree. These communities have been an active part of the school's community since its founding in 1954, and one could literally stand on the front lawn of Sleepy Hollow Elementary School and see this community. Many of the students are able to walk to Sleepy Hollow, and the recommendation would require nearly all families to travel on average 1 mile further by car or bus to Beech Tree, which is only accessible off of Annandale Road. Third, and most important, I've heard from many people on the issue, no one is convinced that FCPS recommendation would improve educational outcomes for students. The recommendation would leave Beech Tree at nearly 100% capacity, while remaining students would be left at Sleepy Hollow at 70% capacity. I and the community question the relative impact on socioeconomic diversity, funding, and teachers for both schools, and we would like to see all data on these areas, as we've seen none of the data on these topics to date. Further, we are concerned that the changes will impact our cherished autism program at Sleepy Hollow. Notable as well, Sleepy Hollow is a local level 4 academic AAP program that was only recently established in 2017. Parents are very concerned that the changes would leave the program without census and decrease AAP opportunities for all children at Sleepy Hollow. Now is not the time to make senseless boundary changes, and I urge the board to reject this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is number 3, Jeffrey Longo.
Thank you for your time tonight. I have 4 main points to highlight. The first is that the crowding issue at Glen Forest is over a decade old. And while there's little debate that an elementary school with over 1,000 students is an issue that requires solving, there is debate on whether this process, undertaken during a pandemic and immediately prior to a board-recognized need to revisit the very policies that guide this process, has been done correctly. Which brings me to point 2. This public process, while not drastically lacking in quantity, has severely lacked in quality. A common concern by the community with the original proposals was that each proposal shifted the burden to Park Lawn. In this latest proposal, which was never vetted by the community, Park Lawn magically remains under capacity due to space optimization. But what does that mean? Will teacher lounges and SAC space be converted into classrooms? Additionally, current policy states that socioeconomic balance should be one of the criteria evaluated during a boundary study. Yet nowhere in the presentation will you find a projection of how socioeconomic need will be shifted. Will this proposal create a greater than 90% need school? None of us can answer these questions right now. In undertaking these decisions, you as school board members should know all of this information, and community and staff stakeholders deserve to have this information as it was requested during the public engagement period. My third point is that several community concerns have been raised and unduly dismissed throughout the process. One such concern, as it was alluded to earlier by Greg Deephouse, was that the proposed changes would have, what would the proposed changes would have on academic programs and achievements of each school. The school board has prioritized the creation of local level 4 programs, since Sleepy Hollow currently has a local level 4 enrollment. The latest proposal to transfer students from Sleepy Hollow to Beech Tree with no backfill of students to Sleepy Hollow, which I reiterate was never vetted by the community, would likely result in a loss in the program. Put simply, this transfer of students creates more problems than it solves and goes beyond the initial scope and purpose of this effort. If you move forward with the boundary changes, please remove the Sleepy Hollow to Beech Tree transfer in your markup. My final point is that adjusting attendance boundaries is yet another temporary solution to a long-term problem. When considering existing school capacity, enrollment growth projections, and future high-density residential development planned in the Justice High School pyramid, it is clear that FCPS needs to be at least planning in its CIP for another school in the Justice High School pyramid. I provide further thoughts on this matter in my written testimony. So in conclusion, in your February 2020 work session, many of you noted the need for this process to occur correctly over quickly. I ask you to consider that the expanded public process that has transpired in less than 3 months, with many important details being hidden from the public, is this what the board views as a correct process? Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker number 4, Leah Richardson.
Hello, my name is Leah Richardson, and I'm a parent of 2 Sleepy Hollow Elementary School students. Our family lives in the portion of the map slated to move from Sleepy Hollow to Beech Tree. I respectfully ask that you reconsider this part of the plan for the following reasons. First, as has been mentioned, many of the homes, half the map, identified to move to Beech Tree live within a mile of Sleepy Hollow and currently walk to school, but this entire section will require busing to Beech Tree. Moving 81 students from Sleepy Hollow to Beech Tree without adding any students to Sleepy Hollow does not address the overcrowding at Glen Forest, which is the primary reason for the boundary adjustment. Sleepy Hollow and Beech Tree were specifically highlighted in the expanded scope that the board agreed to at the February 24th, 2020 work session, because there is space in these schools. However, the recommendation that the board is now considering doesn't add students to Sleepy Hollow, and in fact lowers the program capacity there from 86 to 70%. In this scenario, Beech Tree's capacity increases from 78 to 95% and is projected to be at 99% within 2 years. Why are we moving our students from the school with the most room to spare to a school that will be overcrowded within 2 years? Overall, the recommendation creates the conditions for overcrowding at multiple schools. It brings 5 of the 7 schools in the pyramid to 90% or higher within 2 years. To quote Dr. Brabran, passing the problem from one school to another is not a solution anyone can support. The board's goal to implement these shifts as soon as the fall is also a serious concern. The scope was expanded in February 2020, less than a month before the country shut down because of COVID-19. Many of us in this expanded region were only notified of this plan for the first time in an email sent on February 26, 2021, over a year after the board agreed to expand the scope. Has enough of the community been heard from? And by what measure do you use to determine that you've brought enough of us into the conversation? It is entirely possible that during the pandemic, families weren't able to dedicate the time and headspace because we were juggling a lot, including illness and death. The only justification we've been offered is that this will eliminate an attendance island for Beech Tree, to which I ask, are there documented concerns from the community about attendance islands? More than anything, I'd ask the board to consider that Route 50 is what creates the geographic divide, and these attendance islands will exist as long as students have to cross Route 50 to get to their school. In all cases, in the final plan, I ask the board to consider the most liberal phasing possible and give families of current enrollments and siblings the option to grandfather into their current schools. And finally, from the heart, I will say that we don't want to leave our beloved Sleepy Hollow, as I'm sure families across the pyramid don't want to leave their schools either. But if there was a sensible, thoughtful, and sustainable plan that actually met the goals of the boundary study and addressed overcrowding, I wouldn't be here speaking to you today. I would be proud, I'm going to finish, I would be proud to be part of the solution and giving my children that opportunity to learn that sometimes we sacrifice for the greater good. But instead, we're looking at a future where constant boundary adjustments are the norm. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is number 5, Eileen Kelly.
Hi. I'd like to thank you for your time to hear from the community. My name is Eileen Kelly, and I'm a proud teacher at Park Lawn Elementary, one of the quieter elementary schools that you don't hear a lot of voices coming out of. We have a wonderful staff and community at Park Lawn, and we welcome any and every student that enters our doors. My concern about the boundary changes focus on 2 aspects. Number 1 is family engagement equity. Each school works hard to engage families and their events in their communities. With the populations of Park Lawn and Glen Forest, many of our families rely on being able to walk to the events being held at their nearby schools. By changing these boundaries, it will make it more challenging for these families to stay engaged, even though they really want to, and to stay connected to the school community that they will be attending. We work hard. It's hard to get parents to be engaged. It's hard to get families to be engaged. But by not being able to walk to the school for evening events or events during the day, it's going to make that even more challenging for these families to be engaged. My second concern is with passing the capacity issues onto other schools is not a real solution. In all the boundary change options, the issue is just spreading the capacities to other schools, particularly Park Lawn Elementary School. We know the population is going to keep growing. We need a permanent solution as opposed to a temporary solution. Similar to that at which you did with Bailey's Elementary a few years ago, in which we find another building or another place in which Glen Forest can expand to, would relieve the capacity issues that you're seeing over at Glen Forest. I was a teacher at Bailey's Elementary School when it was broken into 2 campuses, and I have not heard of any capacity issues since that solution was brought to the table. So those types of solutions are long-term. They seem to have where kids stay at their schools that they would normally be going to, and it doesn't affect other schools and other communities. So finding a long-term answer to something similar like that, as opposed to shifting kids to different schools, knowing that the population in this communities are going to continue to grow year after year. We're just going to be revisiting this issue a few years down the road, and we're going to be moving kids to other schools. So I plead for the board to think of more long-term solutions as opposed to temporary ones. That is just going to move families to schools that they can't engage in and can't feel a part of the community because they can't access those schools. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Speaker number 6, Robert Cocta.
And good evening. I'm a parent of 3 young children in the Sleepy Hollow Elementary School zone, and I would like to voice my opposition as well to the proposals to shift our kids away from our neighborhood schools, especially this year. I agree with the arguments you will hear tonight about how these proposals risk doing damage to our children and our community. Sleepy Hollow Elementary has been an anchor in our community for decades. Why strip this anchor away from our kids and community this year of all years, when the focus should be on reestablishing stability so our kids can quickly make up for lost ground? I agree with objections that the proposals were not vetted with the community and are inherently inequitable to the affected students. From those proposals seeking to alleviate overcrowding at Glen Forest by creating overcrowding in other schools, to now forcing our kids to change schools to address an abstract attendance island problem, which has nothing to do with Sleepy Hollow Elementary. These proposals are illogical, Alice in Wonderland solutions in search of a problem. Moreover, at a time when property tax revenues are rising and our county is awash in federal stimulus money, why not use these new resources to alleviate crowding by opening schools instead of crowding existing ones? Now, in addition to being a parent, I'm the secretary of the Sleepy Hollow Citizens Association, and I'm elected to represent about 300 families. This issue has struck a chord not only with parents, but also future parents and longtime residents. Our executive committee unanimously opposes moving our kids. Over 200 residents signed a petition in opposition. Our association, parents, and homeowners have reached out to the school board seeking information and dialogue, but we have been rebuffed. We've asked the school board to explain how they will mitigate the disruptive effects on students of this change. The school board did not respond. We asked the school board to share estimates for growth in student numbers at Sleepy Hollow and how these trends affect strategic planning. The school board did not respond. We asked the school board to explain the attendance island rationale behind the latest recommendation. The school board did not respond. The school board's lack of transparency, changing rationales without explanation, and unwillingness to engage with our community suggests there are ulterior motives that this school board is hiding from us. And so I ask you tonight, is this hearing more than a box-checking exercise? If so, you should respect your constituents enough to answer our questions now in this forum, while many of us can hear from you directly. Why are you seeking to kick our kids out of our community school in a pandemic year? Rushing through proposals like this that rips kids from their neighborhood school for no pressing reason will deepen distrust of the school board's methods and commitment to our kids. You cannot claim to value the mental health of our children while tearing them away from their school friends, familiar staff, and routines, all for reasons you cannot publicly state. You could have demonstrated accountability by being honest and upfront with us. You could have shared your data and shared your plans. And now I urge you to try to rebuild public trust by actually representing parents, representing neighbors, and rejecting these boundary changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker number 7, Elizabeth Diesen.
Hello, I am Elizabeth Diesen. I am the strings teacher at Park Lawn and Glen Forest Elementaries, as well as Glasgow Middle School. I have held this position at Park Lawn and Glen Forest for the past 5 years. I am speaking over concern about the projected increase in enrollment at Park Lawn. As another speaker already stated, I'm confused where this extra space is coming from. I'm concerned that the program capacity changes at Park Lawn are short-sighted. I am unsure where the extra space is coming from. Where will more parking come from? Parking at Park Lawn is already a full space and very difficult as someone who must come in the middle of the day, as it's my third school of the day. The gym, which is half the size of Glen Forest's, is too small to hold assemblies with Park Lawn's current enrollment. Will there be changes made to alleviate traffic problems already existing on Braddock Road at arrival and dismissal? Now, I know those are already concerns at Glen Forest as someone who also teaches there. However, Glen Forest as a building is better able to handle its current student size. I would ask the board, could fewer students be moved from Glen Forest to alleviate some overcrowding at Glen Forest without overcrowding Park Lawn at the exact same time? Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker number 8, Nate Carmody. We don't see him. Speaker number 9, Karen Powell.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Karen Barajas Powell, and I have 2 sons that are currently attending elementary schools in the Justice High School pyramid. One of my sons is Orion. He's a 1st grader at Parkland Elementary, and my other son is Owen, who's a 3rd grader at Belvedere Elementary. I know that the purpose of this boundary adjustment process is to address the school's overcrowding. And I know it can be a very contentious process since many people have varying opinions and concerns in terms of our children attending the schools. And I just wanted to speak on behalf of my sons and other parents who are in the same situation where they have 2 children that are attending different schools due to the advanced placement programs. Since many students are being moved around, with some students going from Parkland Elementary to Belvedere Elementary under the current boundary proposal, and we actually live in the boundary island that is being created by the current boundary proposal. One of my sons is going to remain at Parkland, the other one at Belvedere, and I was going to suggest that perhaps allowing siblings of the Parkland students that attend at Belvedere to be able to attend Belvedere. As the previous speaker said, Parkland, which we love and is very dear to us, has some crowding issues already, and they're having a lot of kids coming, being moved around and so forth. So why not allow some siblings to go with their siblings at Belvedere? I'm sure parents and students would greatly appreciate this consideration. As you can imagine, it's quite difficult managing 2 different elementary school schedules when your children are only a year apart. So I would just greatly appreciate this consideration for this. I know it's a smaller group of individuals, but thank you for your time and appreciate the consideration, and have a great one.
Thank you. Speaker number 10, Joseph Pica. Speaker number 10, go ahead, please.
Good evening. Yes, can you see me?
Yes.
Good evening, Chairman Anderson, FCPS board members, and members of the public. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight to discuss the very important issue of elementary school boundaries within the Justice High School pyramid. I'm opposed to the current FCPS staff recommendation related to boundary adjustments within the high school pyramid that the school board will vote on later this month. And I encourage you to oppose the current staff recommendation as well. My family and I are Mason District residents, and our 2 children currently attend Sleepy Hollow Elementary School. Sleepy Hollow is a great school, and we have been extremely happy with the instruction and community at the school. Let me take a moment to discuss 4 key concerns with the current recommendation. First, the current process was started to relieve overcrowding at Glen Forest Elementary School. Under the current staff recommendation, no new students from Glen Forest or other elementary schools within the Justice Pyramid would be sent to Sleepy Hollow. Instead, an estimated 81 students from Sleepy Hollow, including children from our neighborhood, would be sent to another school. If the purpose of this boundary adjustment is to reduce overcrowding at Glen Forest, why are staff proposing to move students from a school, Sleepy Hollow, that is currently less than 100% capacity? If the staff recommendation is accepted, Sleepy Hollow would be less than 75% capacity and Beech Tree would be near 100% capacity. Second, as you've heard, our students currently attend the nearest neighborhood school. If the recommendation is approved, it would be a longer trip for our students to get to school. In addition, our children and other impacted children would drive by Sleepy Hollow in some cases to get to Beech Tree. Third, if approved, the recommendation will actually worsen the overall position of elementary schools within the Justice Pyramid. Specifically, under the staff recommendation and using data presented at the May 20th meeting, by the 2024 school year, 3 of the 7 affected elementary schools would be operating at 98 capacity or higher, and 5 of the 7 schools would be above 90% capacity. If nothing is done, according to the current projections, only 1 of the 7 schools would be above 98% capacity, and only 4 of the 7 schools would be at 90% capacity or higher. Fourth, one of the FCPS staff explanations for this proposal was to eliminate one of the Beech Tree Elementary School attendance islands. I attended meetings in March and April to discuss boundary adjustments, and attendance islands were never discussed as a key criteria. In addition, for anyone familiar with this portion of the county, there's a large highway, Arlington Boulevard, with service roads and commercial properties on both sides that will separate the communities north of and south of Arlington Boulevard that would feed into Beech Tree Elementary School under this proposal. So while on a map this change might seem to make sense, in reality it will not, as there will be 6 lanes of roadway and commercial properties on both sides of the road between portions of the school boundary. The last point I'd like to make is to encourage the board to ask the staff to examine the long-term capital infrastructure of the high school pyramid. We need more elementary schools to be built to adjust capacity. In conclusion, I strongly oppose the current staff recommendation for boundary adjustments within the Justice Pyramid, and I encourage you to not include Sleepy Hollow in any boundary adjustment moves. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker number 11, Cindy Adler, pardon me. Cindy Adler. Okay, we can move on to speaker number 12, Kevin Hollinger.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead, Ms. Adler. Mr. Hollinger will wait until Ms. Adler's comments are done.
All right. For some reason, the camera quit working. I'm not sure why. But anyway, I'm Cindy Adler. I live in Old Sleepy Hollow. It's called Old Sleepy Hollow because our neighborhood is 90 years old. We live just 2 blocks down on Sleepy Hollow Elementary on the other side of Sleepy Hollow Road. In 1954, when the school was built, it became and continues to be an important important extension of our neighborhood's backyard. It's where we have celebrated many neighborhood milestones, and it's where our neighborhood children have attended elementary school there for the last 70 years. We have just over 300 homes in our neighborhood, and I have a petition here, and I would show it to you if you could see me, with more than 200 neighbors that have signed. Oh, I think I just saw it there. Sorry, here it is. 215 neighbors have signed, and they've all come to the same conclusion that there is no existing problem at Sleepy Hollow Elementary or any other elementary school that would be solved by removing our children from our neighborhood school. You know, in your packet, your mission statement to change the boundary lines was one sentence long: to address overcapacity elementary schools within the Justice School Pyramid. Sleepy Hollow Elementary is not overcrowded. Beechtree Elementary is not overcrowded. They are the two smallest schools in the Justice Pyramid, and they both function just fine for their communities. Your recommendation to remove our neighborhood school from our community and disrupt the lives of our children is 100% contrary to your said mission statement, because moving our children to Beechtree Elementary will push their capacity to 99%, and that's by your calculation. This decision to move our children out has nothing to do with your mission to address overcrowding. Our children will literally have to drive by their neighborhood elementary school to go twice as far to overcrowd a school that they don't know, while Sleepy Hollow Elementary sits at 73% capacity. The recommendation is capricious, it's arbitrary, and despite many requests that we have asked for, we've been given no reasonable explanation for this. But we have learned that it has to do more with coloring in a map that would make it look like we've removed an attendance island over on the other side of Arlington Boulevard. And while other people have said it, it may look good on paper. It's a false promise to believe that disrupting our families and forcing our children out of our neighborhood to go to school at the same school that they do on the other side of 50 will make those families feel more inclusive. Not only are those homes separated by a major transportation artery, they're separated by commercial business development. They are an island. They have always been an island, and they will always be an island until a solution is found for those families to attend a school with their neighboring communities on that side of Route 50. Disrupting the peaceful existence of our neighborhood solve that problem. Almost finished. Most importantly, it has nothing to do with the mission to address overcapacity schools, and there is no rational basis to disrupt our neighborhood, to disrupt the Sleepy Hollow Elementary neighborhood, the Beechtree Elementary.
Adler, your time is up. I'm sorry. Your time is up.
Reject the notion. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker number 12, Kevin Hollinger.
Well, it seems to me that the general consensus is that the school board has acted without regard for the students, without regard for the parents. I think that's the same exact thing that we experience all over the place, where the professionals that are supposed to be in charge of our kids end up hurting them. I'd like to share to you with you guys my experience. Now, we know that Island Creek is not part of this expansion, but I've had a teacher that actively stated that he lies to parents often in an attempt to get done what he wants done. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. This notion, or this egregious action, has been reported to the superintendent.
Mr. Hollinger,
nothing about it.
Mr. Hollinger, I'm so sorry.
Who's attempted to
Mr.
silence me right
Hollinger,
now. This is what
I would like to remind you that this is a boundary adjustment, sir.
This is
Mr. Hollinger.
It does pertain
we are
to that.
going to have to ask you to speak to the issue here.
Of course you want to hinder my First Amendment right. We understand
it is,
that, Dr. King.
Mr. Hollinger, if your statement is related to this matter,
we know that you don't want me
please
to
go
have
ahead
my
and
First
speak, but
Amendment
if
right.
not, we'll need to ask you to go to another opportunity. Thank you so much.
You know that you continue to break the law, Dr. King. You're a law breaker. That's what people like you do.
Thank you, sir.
Speaker number 13, Abby Flores.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members, and neighbors for the opportunity to discuss the boundary adjustment.
My name is Abby Flores, and I'm representing my 3 children today, 2 that currently attend Sleepy Hollow Elementary School, and my youngest child that we hope will attend in the future. My family and other members of the Shees community are concerned about the proposal to redistrict portions of the Justice Pyramid to relieve overcrowding. Many have questions if this actually resolves the issue or if it's merely a Band-Aid, subjecting our children to another move in the future. The recommendation presented on May 20th moves my kids from a school they can walk to with a comfortable capacity to a school they must be bused to with a capacity nearing its limits. I'm opposed to this change, one that will remove my children from our neighborhood school, a school that appreciates and supports them, without confidence that this is really an adequate or necessary solution. We have carefully and objectively made decisions to stay at Shees that we felt were in the best interest of our children. It's frustrating to know that now this decision is being made for us with a very wide lens that can't account for the individual needs of a child or the wishes of their parents. My primary concern is for my oldest child, George, a rising 4th grader. He was identified in kindergarten as a child that would benefit from having a 504 plan in place. We've worked successfully with his teachers, counselor, and principals and feel that this group of people are advocating for George and know what is best for him. This year, he was able to take part in the Level 4 AAP program because of the support system at Shees. Although he had the opportunity to go to Belvedere that has a more established program, we felt it was best for him to continue with the Shees community that he has come to know and love, and he has thrived. Now, all of this is being said in the context of one child, our 3rd grader, that's most rooted at Shees. However, our rising 1st grader, Rodrigo, has been anticipating his time at Shees and has known the faculty and staff for years. We are not just passing through, but are invested in the school community, participating in international nights, field trips, pancake breakfast, career day, and we hope that all of our children will benefit from this investment of our time. I've listened to almost a full year of kindergarten classes, and my husband has done the same for 3rd grade. There is no year where we've felt more connected to the Shees community than this one. We've shared a blackboard window into our home, watched our teachers successfully and gracefully juggle their own work and family life. We've had siblings all eager to be a part of their brothers' classes. Many would argue that now is the time to redistrict while everything's in disarray from COVID, but I would argue the counter. One of the silver linings of the past year has been the monumental strides we've made connecting with our school. It would be a shame to let this moment of parent involvement be wasted. I'm almost finished. Please consider the recommendation presented. Please reconsider this recommendation or provide a more compelling reason the community can get behind as to why this solution should be implemented this fall. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker number 14, Colleen Busher.
I'm trying. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for inviting the community to speak tonight. And I have to say, I am incredibly impressed and invigorated by all the parents who have come before me with incredibly articulated words that they clearly rehearsed ahead of time. I have a lot of thoughts that I'm going to try to get out quickly, but I have not rehearsed them in advance. My name is Colleen Busher. I am a parent of an 8th grader at Glasgow, a 5th grader at Belvedere, and a 2nd grader currently at Sleepy Hollow. We live in one of the neighborhoods that has been selected without known cause or explanation by the board to be yanked out of our neighborhood school and sent to a nearby school. We have nearly made it through one of the most challenging, confusing, anxiety-provoking years in our young children's lives, and frankly, in recent memory. Are we really going to yank them out of their known neighborhood school during a pandemic? And if so, why can't we get more answers about the reasons behind this? Neighbors have asked, and emails and calls have gone unanswered. We have had 215 of our immediate neighbors sign a petition opposing this. Our PTA and our parent community also sent a very well-articulated letter detailing all the various reasons that the Sleepy Hollow PTA opposes the change. It has nothing to do with the neighborhood schools that their kids would be going to, but everything to do with the timing, the lack of transparency, and the reasoning behind this. The Sleepy Hollow Citizens Association, the association in the neighborhood I live in, also sent a very well articulated letter opposing the change. None of them have been answered. And that is one of our biggest concerns as well. I'll remind you, we're parents who work. We've juggled kids' work, virtual learning, changing landscapes, being supportive to our anxious kids, and calming their nerves during this intensely trying year at the same time as calming our own. We've asked to be flexible. Not only were they uncertain, we had mask wearing, hand washing, social distancing. It was a lot. We finally get back to normal, some sense of normalcy with 4 days instruction in person, and are looking forward to the fall where we can finally be back to normal, and then come to find out that this proposal has hit, and it could not be the worst timing. It's a little too much to bear for us Sleepy Hollow parents. The proposal does not address the problem of Glen Forest overcrowding, and number 2, has not had enough time to involve community and parent support, has not had enough careful planning, and number 3 is being rushed through to the point where staff, administrators, and teachers at these other schools can't possibly plan staffing and needs in time for next fall. The ultimate metric is that Sleepy Hollow would drop in capacity to 70-ish range, while Beech Tree would be bumped up to 99%, and that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. We are talking about this fall, after all. The school board did not respond to comment to our requests and questions, and that is one of our biggest concerns. We would like some answers to our questions, and our neighbors would just like to know why this proposal seems to be targeting our neighborhood. I respectfully ask the board to reconsider. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Speaker number 15, Sean Fox.
Good evening. My name is Sean Fox, and I speak to you tonight on behalf of the Sleepy Hollow Citizens Association. I also speak on as the parent of 2 young men who attended Sleepy Hollow as children. I'll try not to rehash what's already been said and shared by my fellow speakers and my neighbors, but I want to share a little history. The HSCA was founded in 1945 and is the oldest or second oldest association in Fairfax County. SHCA and Sleepy Hollow have a long and rich history. From talking with some of our longer tenured neighbors, it's my understanding that our membership was integral in the founding of Sleepy Hollow back in 1954. That connection has lasted generations. In fact, our neighborhood is home to several generations of Sleepy Hollow alums, and there is now at least one 4th-generation resident attending Sleepy Hollow Elementary School. Our neighborhood has supported Sleepy Hollow over the years through PTA, leadership, generous fundraising, and using Sleepy Hollow, as Cindy mentioned, as a base for many of our community events. Side note, I recently discovered a book in my attic as I was cleaning it out that was checked out from Sleepy Hollow in 1955. I'm happy to return the book to the school as long as I don't get a fine. It belonged to somebody who attended the school back in 1955 to 57. Our executive committee met last week to discuss the proposed changes. As Bob mentioned, based on the rationale provided, it was clear to our members that this change would do nothing to address the overcrowding at Glen Forest Elementary School, would increase crowding at Beech Tree, and leave Sleepy Hollow less diverse and less supported than it currently is. If the entire reasoning behind the Justice Pyramid Boundary Study was to alleviate overcrowding at certain schools, it certainly doesn't help that it's going to just do nothing for the one our kids already attend. Our board voted unanimously to oppose this plan before you tonight. As you've already heard from other residents and neighbors, a petition was posted, and as Cindy mentioned, over 215 of our neighbors have signed it to date. If the primary reason for pushing this plan ahead is to eliminate an attendance island, which everyone else has already mentioned, I'd ask how changing a map will have any impact on the fact that this neighborhood is physically separated from this neighborhood by Arlington Boulevard, and it will not change a thing. As a closing note, I just wanted to let you know that we moved here specifically because of this school. When we bought this house, it was because we wanted to go to this school. I worry that future neighbors and current residents who have small children are going to be disillusioned with the fact that now their kids can't attend the school that they planned on it. I humbly ask that you oppose this plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker, Stephanie Jovanetti Lips.
Can you hear me? I don't know if my video is up.
Yes, we can hear and see you. Go ahead, please.
Okay, super. Sorry. Thank you. Hi, my name is Stephanie Jovanetti Lips. I live on Beechwood Lane, which is part of the old Sleepy Hollow neighborhood. My daughter just graduated Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional talking about it. My daughter just graduated from Justice High School yesterday, and my oldest son graduated from there 4 years ago. I have an 8th grader, and I also have a 1st grader. So I am very committed to this neighborhood. I moved here from Massachusetts, and I started looking in North Arlington and planning to have my children attend Yorktown. I specifically moved to this neighborhood so that my children would attend school from Sleepy Hollow through Justice. I wanted my children to understand that we don't live in a world of rose-colored glasses and that the world is diverse. And I feel that that opportunity was offered to them at Sleepy Hollow all the way through Justice. We've had some pretty horrible experiences in our time at Justice, but we've had a wonderful experience at Sleepy Hollow. I don't know if anyone's thought about the fact that the principal is leaving at Justice and the amount of upheaval that will cause, and how many principals we've been through in the past few years. In my time there's been 4 principals since my children have been there in the last 8 years. Has anyone thought about the mental health of these children? My daughter suffers from mental health, and much of the problem has been brought on by this pyramid, has been brought on by the changes that have happened through this pyramid, and what has happened at Justice. And if you think that moving a school in our neighborhood down to 79% or 80% or whatever it is really going to help these kids, then you really are not acting as school board members with the children first in your hearts and in your minds. Honestly, you trying to move children over or saying, oh, we'll grandfather them in for 1 year is not thinking about the kids. You need to think about what these kids have been through for the past 1.5 years, because me, as a mother, I've witnessed 4 children who have struggled through school. Justice was closed for an entire month because of a pornography problem. And maybe I'll get shut off for saying that, but it's common knowledge. It was acknowledged. The teachers have acknowledged it. We've had problems all throughout the school year for the past 1.5 years due to the fact that we had a problem called COVID, and it has affected many children's mental health. You can think about, oh, I want to do the numbers, or I want to think of this pyramid, or I want to think about this island. No, think about the children's mental health. And where it starts is where they're in kindergarten. So I just ask you to think about the children's mental health as you think about moving them to another school that is nowhere near where they live.
The speaker's time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was our final speaker.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. In closing, thank you all for virtually attending tonight's public hearing and for sharing your concerns and questions and comments. The board appreciates hearing from you. Action on the proposed boundary adjustment is scheduled for the June 17th regular business meeting. Thank you all and have a good evening. This meeting is now adjourned.